Vulnerability is key in leveling up in our lives. It simply means being present and unguarded in our daily existence. Speaking with Gregory Nesmith, the guy changing the philosophy of what it means to be an underdog, revealed some simple yet profound truths about how to be vulnerable and the power that comes with it. We also speak about practical tips and tools on how to reset our lives. Get ready to experience change and transition on this episode of LifeClub. I'm Tashima Jones. Welcome to LifeClub. I genuinely believe personal development unlocks the door to the abundant and wonderful life we all already have. I also believe we must be intentional about seeking out that life in order to find and fulfill it. I am so grateful your journey of discovery has led you all the way here. Let's keep moving forward together. Once again, welcome to LifeClub with me, Tashima Jones. You are tuned in to LifeClub with Tashima Jones. Super excited about today's topic. We are speaking about vulnerability and resetting our lives. The V word can be very scary at times, but we must be honest with ourselves and acknowledging that vulnerability is really the only way we can live a full life. Just think about it. We come into this world as little babies with really not too much power, not even the ability to effectively communicate. So vulnerability is a part of our lives. And joining us on LifeClub today is the one, the only, Mr. Gregory Nesmith. Gregory Nesmith is a certified professional coach and certified in energy leadership. He is a senior consultant at Think Human and Hire Learners. Gregory is also an underdog advocate, published author, and investor. He works with business teams and community difference makers as a speaker, content creator, and facilitator of leadership development programs. He is truly an entrepreneur at heart, creating Underdog Stuff, a platform for exploring how underdogs find ways to keep coming up and coming back. Underdog Stuff is also a podcast and live radio show. We welcome you, Mr. Gregory Nesmith, to LifeClub. How are you?
LifeClub with Tashima Jones.
With Tashima Jones, yes.
I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited to actually speak with you. Before we get into the topic, we are going to have the same 7, our rapid fire round of questions that we ask each and every one of our special guests. Are you ready?
I am. Can I use this?
You really can. Just, give me a shout out the
Of
first
course.
time you use it. Okay, got it. What is your favorite song?
Doing It to Death by James Brown.
Okay, I need to go back into the, the record decks.
Yeah,
the deck,
we're going to have a funky good
Oh,
time.
okay, look. Okay, I know that song.
Going to take you high.
What is your favorite color?
It used to be blue or green, colorful colors, but I'm in New York now, so I wear a lot of black.
Okay. So it's like, it depends on where you are, what space you're in.
Yeah, earth tones most of the time, but if I look at my wardrobe, my favorite color now is black.
It's black. Good choice. I like black too. What's your favorite food?
Soul food.
And what does that mean? Because that means a lot to a lot of people. It might be a little different.
Oxtails and rice and collard greens, or if we're talking brunch and breakfast, fried catfish, grits and eggs, or, because I'm from Philly, cheesesteak.
Sounds good.
Which isn't soul food, but I throw
but
that in
it
there.
fills your soul.
Yes.
It has an effect on your soul. Good stuff.
Wellness.
How do you stay healthy?
Man, how do I stay healthy? Playing basketball, meditating, and doing a lot of work, like getting coached, seeing therapists, talking to family and friends.
Good stuff. What advice would you give to your younger self?
Go out and play. I wish I would have gone out and played more. Follow your curiosity. People say live your purpose. But I'm sure when I was younger, I wouldn't have known exactly what that meant. But if someone would have told me to just go out and play more, I think things would have happened faster. But now they're happening right on time. But yes, definitely go out and play. And I would say also share more. I would tell my younger self not to keep so many secrets about things that I think I might be embarrassed about, to not keep in my dreams, to not keep in my feelings as much when I was younger.
That's good. That's good. If you could go anywhere in space and time, where would it be and why?
The 70s.
Okay. And why?
And not because there was a lot of good funk music and I think Good Times TV show and stuff like that, but I was in foster care and then eventually adopted. And so I would go back to around the years when I was born, and I would love to be like a fly on the wall and actually see what was going on in the world of my biological dad and biological mom, see what was going on in the world of the people who would eventually become my angels and my parents. Because sure, they can tell me stuff from years ago, but there's nothing like actually being able to see it. And I'm sure I would have a new level of appreciation and love for each of their circumstances. And so I would go back to the 70s and go see what was going on in the people who both give me my nature and my nurture.
That's so good. I think it also creates this space of empathy for the people who came before us and who are responsible for us. So to be able to see their lives in motion, that's beautiful. That's good.
I'm sure they were doing the best they could.
Yes.
Which I know they were. All four of them.
All of them. And last but not least, in your own words, what is the definition of life?
I do a morning meditation that involves a lot of things, but one of the things I do is say a prayer for folks. And, I get to be included in that. And I always think about peace of mind. I think about abundance of love, excellent health, and lots of swag. And so to me, that's life. And then if we want to sprinkle on top of that, it's normally me finding my people. And also doing stuff to help people. And to me, that encompasses life.
That's good. Good stuff. I see some of what you said on a T-shirt. I'm just saying. It's pretty cool.
I appreciate that. I've noted.
You got to play this back and then, get that caption real quick. All righty. So we're going to dive right into our conversation about vulnerability and resetting our lives. And of course, I wanted to start with vulnerability. That can be very scary at times. But I also think that we need to know what being vulnerable is and what it looks like to really understand its benefits. So what is vulnerability? What does it mean to be vulnerable?
I think it means a couple different things. Oftentimes people think of, or at least I thought of vulnerability as stuff that I'm embarrassed about or stuff that would make me or the other person cry. Things that are very emotional and actually sharing that from a place of hoping that I won't get judged or talked about. And I think vulnerability is when I or other people share those things that they feel most uncomfortable about. But that's not the only place where vulnerability shows up. I think it's an undertold story. Sharing what I want, sharing what you want. There's a vulnerability in that too. Some people out here having big dreams and keeping them to themselves because they think people are going to laugh at them or that no one thinks it's possible, or even worse, they don't think it's possible. So for me, vulnerability is not only sharing those uncomfortable, embarrassing things, but it's also sharing the things that I want, that I really, really want with other people so that then they can support me. I hope they share with me so we can support each other.
And what it seems like, is that being vulnerable is simply being yourself, unguarded and unafraid, and just genuinely being who you are and showing up as that person. And I think part of our journey teaches us to not be our full selves. It teaches us not to be who we were created to be, who we are, It's almost like we are taught to wear these masks, if you will.
We are, and I'm always a bit nervous before I share something. And then every time I've shared something, it's never as bad as I thought, and I'm often rewarded by people going, man, it's so glad to know you. I've been someone who's been the man on the side of involved in, let's say, an abortion. I've been the guy and the woman, let's say I was dating, chose to have an abortion. I shared about that once someplace, and I was nervous to share about it, but it came up in a conversation, and someone said to me, they're so glad that I actually shared. And I'm like, it's been one of my experiences. But then what opened up is some people came to me afterwards and go, oh, I've had that experience too. Either the woman did or the man was a part of that. Telling people about my talk radio dreams as a little kid. I think what happens is when we're vulnerable, we also experience ourselves as not being alone. And then the other people on the other end realize like, oh, other people got stuff going on too, that I'm not alone. They're not alone.
Which is so strange.
Everybody's fronting. Yeah. Everybody out here fronting like, they don't have hopes and dreams and drama. And it's like, every time we share with each other, we can actually be more of ourselves.
And do you think that is something about culture and society? Because when you think about it, we are all human beings experiencing life. And where does this notion come from that we are alone or that we don't share the same principles, values, emotions, experiences, and dreams? Where does that come from? And my other question to add to that is being vulnerable different for men and women?
Yeah, well, that's like a whole meal just now.
Yeah,
Where do you want me to start?
You can start with just start with that one. Start with that one. Is being vulnerable different for men and women?
I at one point launched and led a men's group in New York City for about a year and a half. I've also done coaching and consulting with both women and men, and I think generally men, and I'll say myself, want to retract, kind of go to the cave, so to speak, and have some time alone in tough times. And it's been my experience that oftentimes women prefer to go reach out and express their emotion and share about that pain or that situation. And so I think oftentimes neither way is necessarily good or bad. And I think there's a space for both time to be alone and time to talk. But oftentimes men seem to lean towards not talking at all. And that's even worse when you keep it all inside.
Definitely. Do you think it's because men are taught to not be emotional creatures, or that they're taught that they have to lead and be that person, like that foundation, and to the point where they feel like they can't share?
Well, I think it's a spectrum, right? There's oftentimes the range of there's things that I personally believe about myself, all the way to the other side of the spectrum of there's things the society believes about me. And so society may believe that you have to be a man of strength and force, and you come in and you save the day. You're a superhero. You don't cry. You're always cool under fire. Then somewhere in between very personal situations and society, maybe once or twice a guy attempted to share his feelings, or maybe he shed a tear in a moment and someone called him a name. Someone said that that's not the way you act. And so now they have past experience, which now makes them want to act a certain way. And then lastly, if we go real inside, something like that inner critic or that hater inside of us can sometimes just say, like, I'm not supposed to be that way. And that's the range of where it can happen, all the way from society to past experiences to just an internal belief that this is the way I'm going to be because this is the way I am, not knowing that it may feel like it's true to you, but it's not the truth.
And help us women. How do we engage with a man who is being vulnerable? Like, what's the worst thing that we could say or do in that moment of vulnerability? And what's the best thing that we
You mean, what's the equivalent to when a man says to a woman, I need you to calm down?
Yes. Like, in that moment, because I think...
Or why aren't you smiling?
Yeah.
You
So,
want the equivalent of that mistake?
Exactly.
When
Like
they say that to women?
how do we engage? Because I think, especially as women, I think we have more power than we allow ourselves to accept, especially when it comes to interacting with men, especially in relationships in general. And I don't think we recognize that. So in our attempt to be heard, we can hurt. So how do you interact with a man who is being vulnerable, opening up himself to you? And in that moment, what is the best thing? Is it just to be quiet and listen? Or how do you show that, I guess, that attention and that affection in that vulnerable space?
Yeah, I think one of the first things to do is to acknowledge the person, and this is regardless of whether it's a man or a woman, and validate them. So you don't have to agree with someone when they're having a moment, but you can say, Tashima, I get that you're upset, and I think it's natural to feel that way given what's happened. All of a sudden, you've acknowledged that they're having an emotion, and you let them know that, like, there's nothing wrong with them for having it. I didn't say whether or not I agree with what you're mad about, but I'm acknowledging and validating it. That's the first place to start. It lets people know that they're being heard as opposed to judged. And I think that works for when a woman is having a conversation with a man, or when man, woman, or child kid.
In general.
Yes. So I think that's the first place to go. And then know that people are doing the best that they can at that moment. So while you may be king of emotional IQ and empathy and all that stuff, maybe that person isn't right there in that moment, or just hasn't had this experience happen in their life. So give some grace to them. And then the other thing I would say is ask some questions. They say we learn a lot of good things about life when we're little kids. Who, how, what, why? Why do you feel that way? How can I help? How about I give you some time to take a moment? What happened? How you feeling? Why are you feeling this way? Instead of coming at people, ask them questions.
I got issues with that.
Yes, but this happens in any situation.
I'm being vulnerable right now.
No, and I appreciate that, because guess what? This happens in relationships. It happens at work. If your manager's coming at you, you didn't do this and that. Well, sometimes if the manager would just say, what was getting in your way of not getting the project completed? We're going to have a different conversation, as opposed to, I just don't think you care, and it was late.
That's really good. Like, what was it? The 5 W's, I think?
Who, what, when, where, yeah.
Right? And sometimes why? No,
Yeah.
what's it? Sometimes something. I don't know.
Well, now
Anyway.
that's a song.
That's like a whole nother conversation.
But
Sorry.
yes, but it's all good. But
No, sometimes how?
Yes, sometimes how. But in the coaching space, we call those empowering questions. They're open-ended. They allow people the space to let you know what's going on, and then you can talk and listen, acknowledge, and validate from there.
Definitely. So, being a champion for the underdogs, how does a person who may have experienced trauma, rejection, all of these things that kind of can snuff out your hope and your great expectation, how does that person get to a space where they feel free enough to be vulnerable, especially when they've experienced so much, I guess, negativity in their lives?
Yeah, I'm one of the things I pride myself on in underdog stuff, when we talk about this idea of finding ways to keep coming up and coming back, is there's no quick fixes to things. So to me, one of the first things to do is go see your doctor and go see a therapist. And I say that because, and get, if possible, your living situation taken care of. Because if you don't have food on the table, a roof over your head, if you're not physically fit, or at least finding out what may be ailing you, and if you aren't working emotionally to get right, everything else is going to be tough to do, right? I can say I want to host a radio show every week, but if I don't go see the doctor and I'm not healthy, I'm just not going to be here. I can say I want to have a better relationship with you and conversation, but if I'm like still thrown off about something that happened to me when I was 10 years old, I'm not going to be able to do it. So to me, one of the first steps is getting the foundation set. And then also the second piece would be, I like to say, I call it Front Street. A lot of us, and I do this too, sometimes I'm fronting about stuff. I'm fronting about what I really want. I'm fronting about, what did I do to really make this situation so bad? I'm fronting about, I haven't been eating right for like 10 years. So one of the first steps is also, what are we really fronting about? And that's normally a place to look. What secrets am I keeping? What relationships are broken that I haven't made an attempt to fix? Those are some of the places. Go see a doctor. Go get some professional support. Think about what you're fronting about. And yeah, take care of some of the basics. Worry about having a roof over your head and food on the table. And then we can start getting into all this other stuff.
That's good. I think, like you said, a lot of people are so far ahead of themselves. And that's what vision kind of does to you. You can see the end result that you desire, but you always have to come back to, step 1, step 2, and move forward. And what you said about, Front Street is simply amazing, because in order for us to be vulnerable with other people, we have to allow ourselves to be vulnerable from within and be real and honest with the things that we're experiencing. And I think oftentimes a lot of us are trying to change our lives from the outside in. And it really begins within you, being vulnerable with yourself, being vulnerable spiritually, emotionally, and dealing with issues from the 10-year-old self, from the 12-year-old self, because so many people are walking around in their childhood mind.
Yes.
And their childhood emotions.
I was doing it myself related to education up until literally last week. I was still letting my 10-year-old and 23-year-old self make decisions about what I can and can't do when it comes to academics. Never thinking that I was special enough to finish school. And so to make sure I was right, I never finished school. And then finally, this week, actually, I'm going to be returning back to school to finish something that I started over 20-something years ago, because now that kid that didn't think he was special enough to do it realizes that that wasn't the truth.
That's good. That's so good. And the other part of our conversation, I wanted to speak about resetting your life. You know, just following your story. You have definitely have experience with going through something, but not allowing it to stop you and being able to move forward from it. What does resetting your life look like? I always like to get a picture of the things that we speak about, because if we cannot see it, even if it's within ourselves, it's hard to really move. It's hard to act on it. So what does resetting your life look like? And when do you know you need a reset?
Yeah, I think you know you need a reset when you're exhausted, when you're unhappy for long periods of time. And some of the ways you'll know that for sure is if you just sit still long enough to let whatever mood you're in sink in. And for some people, it'll sink in that they're really happy. And for some people, it'll sink in that they're disgusted, unhappy, upset about their circumstances. And that's normally the first place to start, because I've noticed I change and most people only change for one or three reasons. One, something tragic happens, and we hope that that doesn't happen in people's lives, but sometimes that's the trigger. The other is that we stop and sit still long enough to be like, you know what? I'm unhappy that I've kept the secret that I didn't finish school from people. I'm unhappy that I am adopted and never had the courage to go find my biological parents. Isn't that an innate need? And I'm just fronting that I don't want to do that. I'm burning up inside and like emotionally off kilter because I'm keeping this secret about this relationship and this abortion from my family and some of my friends, and they don't probably understand like why I'm acting so just off balance. So that's one of the steps, is like get in touch with those emotions. And lastly, sometimes we get so excited about something we want to do. Like maybe we want to create Tashima Jones Media. Maybe we want to launch LifeClub. And no matter whether you've ever had a nerve or fear in your life about doing it, because you so want to do it, the want outweighs the fears. They don't go away. They just don't matter as much as you wanting something. And so for people, I would say, ideally get in touch with the second or the third one. Don't let something tragic happen. But the way you can know if there's a reset is if you think about what something you really, really want and go after it, or sit still for a second and really see how you're feeling about life.
That's good stuff. That reminds me of something that Oprah Winfrey says: pay attention when the pebble hits you and not when the brick hits you.
Yes.
You gave a really, really great point in that process of resetting your life, which is just pretty much facing yourself, facing the things, the issues, the secrets, the emotions, the good, the bad, and the ugly about yourself and your experiences. After doing that, what are some other steps that someone could take to really jumpstart their new level, if you will, a new chapter in their lives?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question, and I've actually been working on a potential book called The Swaggerback Commandments, and trying to think about what are some of the steps that have worked for me and for other people to go from underdog to, top dog or whatever you want to call it, but making things happen. I think one of them is figuring out, we talked about earlier, the whole fronting thing, like what is bothering me in my life that I want to have be different. The other piece, another practical advice, is who you rolling with. And really, we all need more support than we're getting.
Yes, I agree.
And one of the ways that you turn things around or find ways to make your come up or come back is roll with professional help. And a lot of people think that costs money. There are ways, there's clinics where you can get free therapy or free group coaching. If you're starting a business, there's an organization called score.org where they offer free assistance to help you build your business. But one of the ways to turn things around is to get professional support. The other piece is start thinking about what you really want. Where are you trying to go? What do you value? What's your purpose in life? Start thinking about your curiosity and start to write some of those things down about, oh, I want to provide access to underdogs. I want to help people fight to rediscover how special they are in the world. I value resourcefulness and creativity and collaboration. And now I know what I kind of want to do in the world. I got support from family and friends and professional support. And then another piece is we got to let some bad habits go. We got to let them go. I have, and I've shared with this on my show before, one of my bad habits was I watch too much porn. It's a distraction. It takes away some of my mental focus and energy towards my significant other and just other things I could be doing in life. Let that bad habit go. For some people, it's smoking. For some people, it's something else. But part of going from underdog to where you want to get to is also letting go of some bad habits. Mm-hmm. Also, another practical thing to do is what I call the pivot. And it's not what I call a pivot, but pivot is a business term. But this idea of continuously looking at what's working. And if it's not working, what do you need to do to adjust it to make it work out better? Mm-hmm. And so those are some of the things that I think can help folks go from underdog to on top and embrace the fact that our stories, our struggles are just information for us to learn from to move forward and know that they're challenging, but they're not enough to stop us.
Definitely. I'm so glad you spoke about, allowing yourself to see what you want. Sometimes we get so caught up in what we don't want and what's going wrong that we forget about our desires and our dreams. And a lot of times people don't even allow themselves to dream. And nobody's going to give you that permission. The power doesn't even lie in someone else to even give you that permission to dream. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit. This is the other side of vulnerability. Everyone brings up vulnerability around sharing emotions and things that are going to make them cry. And those are important. But to me, one of the under talked about vulnerabilities is telling people what you want.
Yes.
One of the hardest questions in the world I've noticed is, Tashima, what do you want? Tashima, what do you want? I sometimes ask clients or people I'm close with 5-6 times that same question because I know the first answer actually isn't the real answer. Mm-hmm. The first answer has a little bit of like what you think's possible, what your current circumstances are, what's happened to you in the past. You kind of dreaming, but you ain't really dreaming because what you really want doesn't come through until later. And it's one of the reasons why I do things like vision board events and things like that, because there's ways for us to creatively access that answer. Because if I tell you to sit down right now and write everything you want, it's kind of hard to do that, but it's one of the most important questions we ever ask ourselves.
Yes. And I'm so happy I asked myself that.
Yes.
Speaking about underdog, which I believe that, for a while I have been, and you just have a very positive spin on it. I want to know, how do you transition mentally from being an underdog to being an overcomer? Or how have you taken ownership of that term and made it into something that's inspirational and encouraging?
Yeah, to me, I can't change the past, and no one can. And if you can, let a brother know, please. And so for me, underdog is a way of embracing a new relationship to things that have happened up until now. And they're opportunities to learn about myself, to learn about life. Like, so being in foster care and being adopted. Yeah, it had impact on me, right? There's things I thought about myself. I'm not special enough, or no, I'm not lovable. Yeah, those things happen. And then I learned that they weren't true. And then my relationship to those experiences are now a deeper love and appreciation for my parents, my biological parents. I learned things like forgiveness. I learned things like love. And so those experiences now help me relate to other people who might share those. And then we can turn things around together. So for me, it's about changing the relationship to it for both myself and the people in my life, and then other people I come in contact with who we can learn from it together.
Definitely. And I think those hard experiences can be used to inspire, to motivate, to encourage. So just even your experiences alone, learning from it and using them as a platform versus as like a grave, if you will.
Because they happen, right? So I don't have a choice of whether they happen or not. They happen. Mm-hmm. I do get to have a choice for me and other people I come in contact with is what is our relationship to them going forward, now that they've happened and they're here.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So do you have any projects? What's going on in your world of underdog stuff?
We, out here just trying to make sure we help underdogs find ways to keep coming up and coming back. So I started a live event series. We had our first event in November of last year. We had our second event last week, and it was called 2019 Start, Stops, and Pivots. And we talked about what we learned from 2019, what we're letting go, what we're bringing into the new year, what's our word for the year, created vision boards. And so look for more live event series coming up. The goal is to do them every season. So the next one will be in spring, since we just did one in the winter time. I have my live radio show and podcast called Underdog Stuff, and that's on all of the podcast platforms. And I continue to write. So I'm a published author, and you can see some of my works out there, and everything's on GregoryNesmith.com, all the stuff I'm up to in the world, and I have a weekly newsletter so people can subscribe to that on the website.
Perfect. And what is one thing you want to leave with our listeners about life and just being an underdog and moving forward?
That can't nobody do it like you do it. Nobody.
Good stuff. Thank you so much, Gregory Nesmith, for joining us on Life Club, sharing your tips and tools about vulnerability and resetting our lives. I am so grateful that you were able to join us.
Shout out to Life Club with Tashima Jones.
Yes. Sunny, where can everybody find you?
You guys can find me on Instagram at Sunny D Light. That's my Instagram name.
Every time I hear that, I just want a cup of orange juice. And my name is Tashima Jones. You can find me on tashimajones.com. All of my social media and contact information can be found there. Until next time, remember your greatness. Talk soon. I am Tashima Jones, and you've been listening to Life Club. Thank you for tuning in.